I think I saw an article that was diving into some of the challenges of open source from business perspective, and they had a Gartner reference that I think the number was 95% of the code base depends on or has open source in it. Um, that companies use whether or not they are aware of it. So the interesting part of that paragraph was that it implied that companies aren't even always aware that they, I don't know, pulled in an open source dependency or have open source code in their code base. So when it comes to maintaining these code bases, it doesn't really seem like it's becoming any easier. So I understand that we have more open source code all over. But when it comes to investing in that open source code base and maintaining it like it was your own proprietary solution, it doesn't really seem like a solved challenge, even up to today. At least as far as I can see. There are companies who are in the front line of figuring out how to make it part of their workflow to make the process efficient and sustainable. But a lot still seem to struggle with the concept of even just fixing the bug upstream, either because maybe they haven't figured out the legal parts of it, but I think in most cases it seems like an overhead to them to do the work upstream. And there seemingly are uncertainties that they just decide that it's too risky for them to go down that route.
I don't think it's maybe it's a risk assessment, but I think it's just a lack of either rules or social norms. So I like to look at society, and some things are covered by law and how we've agreed as a country to behave. Like we collect taxes, and then we have a police force, and the police force has laws that they enforce. And we've even if you're born into it, you've somehow agreed to this system. Others are just like social norms. So if my neighbor leaves town and I watch her dog, then she feels like she owes me something. So maybe she, bakes some cookies and brings them over to me. And then I feel like the cookies was more than taking the dog for a walk for a day. So, I pull some apples from my tree and I bring them over to her. And even though we're not consciously thinking about it, we have this sort of like tally in our brain in friendships of how much each person contributes. If one person's always doing all the work in a friendship, it'll fall apart. And companies aren't people, and there's no social norm until we build it in the system. And so there needs to be a social norm of like you contribute back.
And I think that's a struggle, right? Because of the corporate, it's because it is the corporate thing from my experience. But I think we might actually be currently at an inflection point that's helpful because we have so much open source in these various commercial products. Um, there's to overuse a term, there's a level of lock-in when you do it in and when you do it locally inside your company. If you take a bug fix or a feature and you actually put it upstream, then you actually open up the possibility for others to support your code for you if you choose that supporting that code over time isn't something you're interested in. So I know lots of organizations who take a distribution from SUSE or they take a distribution from Red Hat. They add stuff on top of that, and they may hack on the libraries that are inside of that distribution. And if they do that locally, it's theirs that they have to be responsible for all into the future. If they upstream it into that library's upstream, next time Red Hat consumes it, it'll be in there, and so they don't have to actually keep it, and they can continue to have Red Hat support it. So as opposed to them doing self-support. So I think actually now might be an interesting time with additional motivations from a business standpoint as to why it would be economically more feasible to put something upstream as opposed to keeping it local.
Though I think the software that I mentioned before that helped manage all of the changes they made and then contribute them upstream, that was part of the problem, right? That new versions would come out before they contributed up. and then you have to make your fixes work in a new version. Um, a company that will remain nameless for this example actually hired interns to come in and try to contribute back all the changes they had made to code
Oh, oh,
because they found that interns were attracted to the words open source software experience in their job description, and they had this huge backlog of tasks they needed to do. Technical debt, basically.
yeah, yeah. And that's exactly the opposite kind of people you want to throw into that problem. I mean,
Yes.
some probably swam after flailing for a while, but mentorship going into upstream is so important. I mean, remember when we brought the deck team on? I don't know if you were still there at HP when we brought the deck team on.
I was there, but I wasn't involved in that.
Yeah, because that was cool, right? We had a lot of good, solid Linux people, and we had a lot of solid, really solid engineers doing Unix that came in when HP acquired Deck, and we took they all came into the Linux team, and our guys mentored them into one of the toughest communities to penetrate, which was Linux, and they became rockstar Linux contributors, many of them. That was a very, very positive experience for them, and it was all about the mentorship.
Probably win-win on both sides.
Yeah, it was.